In this video, I'm going to show you how to pan tracks around the stereo field in Pro Tools using these pan knobs in the middle of the track. Now the pan knob is found here in the mix window. It is also in the edit window right here on each track. You can see it says pan. But I like this view because it gives me an actual knob to work with. And if I solo this saxophone and play it, you will hear that the saxophone sort of changes position depending on where the pan knob is. So here it is in the middle, and if you're wearing headphones, then you're hearing it in both headphones at the exact same time and at the exact same volume level. If you think about it, you don't have a third headphone, and more importantly, you don't have a third ear, but somehow this sounds like it's right in front of you. And that's because of how our ears localize sound. If a sound comes to them at the exact same time and the same volume level, it sounds like it's right in front of us. If I move this pan knob to the left, now it's only in the left headphone or left speaker. And now it's only in the right headphone or the right speaker. These positions are called hard right and hard left. And then of course the stereo field is everything in between, right? Hard left and hard right and center. All of those positions are available. And actually, you can hear very minute differences in the stereo field. So that helps our mix become clearer and more transparent when we move instruments around to take advantage of that. Now, over the decades, there have been some customs built up in the music production world. And one of those customs is that the kick drum goes in the middle. It's certainly not true 100% of the time. Nothing is. But we're going to go ahead and keep the kick drum in the middle, and we'll hear it. And it'll be clear once we add compression and equalization and things in later videos, but for now it's in the middle. Now the snare drum has a couple of different possibilities. We could pan this to the left slightly. And this is called drummer's perspective. If you think about yourself being the drummer in the band, and you're behind the drum set, right on the throne, and you're the one playing the drums, then you're going to look to your left a little bit, and that's where the snare drum will be. And so if we pan the snare drum there, we're using drummer's perspective. However, we could also pan it the other way. And if I pan it to the right slightly, we are now using what's called audience perspective. Audience perspective is when you are the audience member and you're looking at the drums, same drum set. Now that snare drum is on the right-hand side instead. You could also pan it straight in the middle. This is a more modern approach to snare drum panning. And this is because in a lot of modern music, like the drums are disconnected from like a physical drum set, right? You might have like multiple kick drums, multiple snares, claps, all kinds of things in the drum parts that could not exist in one drum kit in real life. And so the pan positions sort of go away too. The snare drum and the kick drum work this way, both in the middle, because they are different frequency ranges, right? The kick is very low and the snare is much higher, but also because their rhythms are complementary. It usually has the kick on like 1 and 3, for instance, and the snare would be on 2 and 4. And so they're not going to run into each other. It's still very clear. Now, because this is jazz, I am going to go ahead and pan this. I don't want to use a more modern style of panning. I just want it to sound like jazz. And I'm going to pan it to the right because I personally prefer audience perspective panning. But feel free to disagree with me on that one. If I keep going here in audience perspective panning, I can take my first rack tom to the right a little bit, and my second rack tom to the left. Those are the toms of the drums kind of above the kick drum that have that kind of bongy sound. And then the floor tom, tom 3, is going to be all the way, almost all the way, not quite all the way, on the left-hand side of the kit. And then we have the drum overheads. The drum overheads are the mics that are above the drum set. They pick up the cymbals and kind of an image of the whole kit. And these are really what control how big the kit sounds, how wide it sounds in your mix. For now, we're going to put these all the way to the left and right. In a later video, we'll talk about phase relationships and things like that. But for now, we're just going to pan them hard left and hard right. And we may want to narrow those in. We'll see. Let's listen to it. I'm going to solo all the drum tracks. And I'm going to go to a part where the drums are a little thicker here. Let's hear what happens when we narrow those overheads. All right, narrower image. You can really tell a difference. It sounds like the cymbals are spread farther apart, that the drums are a bigger part of the mix. That's okay for this mix because there's only really 4 players here, right? There's a drum set, and then there's bass, piano, and sax. If it were a more complicated mix with a lot more instruments in it, then we might have to make other choices. But for right now, we can let the drums be as wide as possible. The bass is going to go right up in the middle. Again, this is a convention developed over decades of mixing albums in the music industry. And if it's a good arrangement of a good song, then the bass and the kick drum, even though they have similar frequency ranges, they're in the same like low end, they should support each other, and we'll be able to make them even clearer when we EQ them in a later video. So they are playing complementary rhythms, and once we EQ them, it'll be clear like how they fit together. We're going to move to the saxophone. It's the lead voice for most of the song here, and it's going to go right in the middle. Again, another mixing convention. If you choose to put it in a different place, that's okay. There are no exactly rules. There's no mixing police that are going to come and arrest you, but it'll sound different. And the lead voice typically goes right in the middle because it's the most important thing that happens at that time. But if you wanted to make it more realistic, like if this were like with visuals, maybe it was a live concert recording and the saxophone player was standing on the right half of the stage, maybe you would want to do that. But for now, because there are no visuals, I'm going to leave this panned to the middle. Now that brings us to the piano. The piano has a lot of options here. First of all, it's a stereo track, right? You can see 2 pan knobs and a double meter. And so this was recorded with 2 microphones. If I solo it, you can hear the bleed from the other instruments, but you can also hear that spread of the stereo field. Just like I showed you with the drums, we could narrow this. And now the piano is sort of more, narrowly focused towards the front of our head. I could even put it to one side, right? I could put it, both pan knobs, to the same spot on the left, for instance. And if I wanted to keep the size of that piano a little bit bigger, I could spread those out a little bit on the left side or the right side, doesn't matter. And that doesn't really sound bad. As a matter of fact, it's kind of a nice variation in the texture of the song. Again, since we do have the kick and the bass and the saxophone right in the middle, maybe we want the piano off to the side when it comes in. Let's listen to it all together here. Here's a spot where they're all playing together. This is where the art comes in. You have to make artistic decisions about where you want these instruments to be sonically, but you can achieve whatever you want with these pan knobs, and that is how you do it.